Church folks not going to be happy with this one. Y'all saw what Druski did? Yeah, boy, we're going to talk about it. Plus, journalism. What's real journalism? Traditionalist journalists versus the new media once again. And I got hot takes and things to say to both sides. And then certainly, Mike Tomlin out as the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. Steve Biscoitti, Baltimore Ravens owner, speaks. That coming up on this week's edition of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with Uncomfortable Conversations. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. I'm your host, Brian H. Waters. This show brought to you by Six Heart Media Productions. Now, I was going back and forth on what am I starting off with the show this week? Am I going to start off with Druski or am I going to start off with Lynn Jones? But, I want to start off with the whole thing with Druski, right? So, those who've been living under a rock, and that means you're not in the 48 million plus that's seen this clip on X alone. Druski did a skit on how megachurch pastors be. And all of a sudden, all the Christian contemporaries, all the super saved saints are coming out to play. Oh, they said he was mocking God. They said he was disrespectful to the church house. I thought it was funny. Now, if anybody knows, as much as I hate that, those who really know me, but in the case of this podcast, y'all know I go to church every Sunday. And I used to be a drummer. I was an usher. Now a multimedia manager. Seen it all. At one point, I was a junior deacon. Age 13, 14. I had no problem with it because he hit on a lot of aspects. So if you look at the video, you see him coming down on a lift or a drop or whatever you want to call it. To me, it's the thing that lowered Sting in the ring. That's, So he comes down on that, and we've seen a pastor do that before. So he's imitating that pastor. I'm not sure which one it was because I'm going to be honest with you. I never got into a mega church culture. I know people who run to go see the Michael Todds of the world, the Joel Alsteins. At one point, it was the Jamal Bryants. Jamal Bryant got too big for Baltimore. He had to leave and go to Atlanta. And there's, churches locally. Every local church, every place has a local mega church. I never been into mega church culture. I always felt church should be a community. Now, I've been in a big church, but the church that I went to, some people may have considered a mega church. It had, easily 600 to 700 people who attended every week. But the time I was going there, it still felt like a community. You didn't walk up and talk to the pastor per se right away, but I've been at weddings and, I've shot some weddings that were featuring family members of that church. And upon shooting those, right, I saw the pastor there and he was approachable. But you have some of these people in these mega churches. You can't talk to the pastor. You're just another one in those numbers. So when Druski did this, I said, oh, this is hilarious. I saw people say on Facebook, man, that wasn't even that funny. Yes, it was. And what I saw was the people attacked are usually the people participating. We saw Michael Todd do a skit that went viral over a year or two ago where he spit on his hand and touched the guy. And it was very controversial. Come to find out it was his brother, right? And it was a thing where you like to think he was sending a message. But, sometimes it was like, oh, yeah, if I do this, yeah. That's going to go viral. That'll get the people going. Another part where he mentioned, and this is the biggest pet peeve I have with those type of churches, is when the bishop or the pastor closes the door and asks for more offering. Now, full transparency, the church I grew up in has been paid off. It's no secret. You go into church, you will see a plaque where they burnt the mortgage, and it's an image of the ceremony, right? I know that's not the case for all churches, but I've been in some churches where you have offering, and then the pastor says, what did it look like? No, we need some more. All right, we need 5 people to donate $100. 5 people to donate 50. We need some more money. And I'm like, I gave my offering or my tithes or my donation, whatever you want to call it. I gave it once. Why do you need to dig back and get more? This isn't some community event where you're trying to hit a goal. Now, that's the part that was annoying because, and when I was going to this particular church, wasn't going there all the time, but this was a church that my ex was going to at the time, and I would go visit. And every time I visited, there was multiple takes for the offering. That's exactly what it classified. Multiple takes for the offering. And I was like, this is annoying because you mean to tell me every Sunday y'all come up short? Now, I know all about the budget and hitting goals, right? I'm not stupid. I know church is a business. It's ran like a business, right? You don't just, you got to pay the, building funds. You got to clean up the place. You got to pay the electricity. Then you got to pay staff. I understand that. But you mean to tell me every Sunday? Now, I've seen some small churches who don't do that. So when Druski brought that up, I thought that was hilarious. Another thing when he said, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, so I'm in Christian, I think it's Christian Leviton or something like that, whatever. That was another thing that was like, oh, he just struck a nerve because you have these mega pastors wearing all the latest fashion, driving the biggest cars. And yet you can almost guarantee that there is someone in their congregation going to that place, praying for a miracle that they can get home and make it to Friday for their next paycheck, that they can have a meal. You know what I mean? And the church has always been about membership. And when you're a member somewhere, you should be able to go to that place in need. So Druski hitting on all of these things, I was like, this is the type of stuff that does turn people off from the church. This is the type of stuff that make people think about, do I really need to go there? Well, shoot, I can just struggle at home. Now, I am someone who does enjoy fellowship. I like going to church. I like hearing the music. I like hearing the word from the pastor. That wasn't always the case. I used to be one of the people. I played music. I played drums. I like doing that. And then when it came time for the word, I'm on the other side. I don't want to hear this. You get older, you go through some things. Now, what I also do, I do read my Bible every single day. Got the Bible app. Shout out to the brother Jermaine. Me and him will always share scriptures with each other, and we do like the Bible plan where we both sit back and we both read it at our time, and then we comment our interpretations. What is God telling me? So watching this skit, I thought it was funny. He talked about the way pastors dress, the way they make entrances, because they've become performers. They've become entertainers. And that's to be honest. A lot of times pastors are up here entertaining you the same way I am, except I'm doing it with a podcast talking about things that are happening and having uncomfortable conversations. And they're talking about things and throwing Jesus's name on it. But people don't like to hear that. They don't like when you pull out the truth. And that's the reason why people are coming at Druski saying, oh, he's mocking God and this is not right. So Shout out to Druski. I mean, I don't follow a lot of his content. I obviously know who he is. I've seen clips and stuff, but when I watched this, I was rolling because, quite frankly, I thought it was funny. Now let's shift gears. Because quite frankly, this would have led the show if the Druski thing didn't happen. But Lynn Jones, y'all all have heard, people who follow this show, I'm pretty sure y'all have already heard who she is. And y'all know that she did what a lot of people didn't like. Now, Lynn Jones, for those who don't know, because I got to let y'all know, and I got to let y'all in. Lynn Jones is a reporter for a black newspaper in Jacksonville, Florida. And during the post-press conference, after the Jacksonville Jaguars fell short to the New England Patriots, I think it was. Yeah, it fell short to the New England Patriots in the playoffs. Or maybe they fell short to the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, I think it was Buffalo. Whoever they lost to, because, all the stuff starts mixing up. But anyway, Jacksonville Jaguars fall short in the playoffs, and that meant they would not be moving forward. And while people generally use this time to ask questions because they have to write their stories for their deadlines, we respect that. That is journalism. There were people... they asked their questions, but what she did, when they called upon her, she offered the coach, Liam Coen, a word of encouragement. Told him to keep his head down because she said he looked beat up. He had the weight of Jacksonville, Florida on his shoulders, trying to get this team back to the promised land. That team that's never won the Super Bowl, that's been to an AFC title game, but he was trying to take them. They had won the division. After this team, y'all got to remember, the Jaguars were bad for quite a few years. And he had the weight of that on his shoulders, and she saw that. And just like a mother would do, I'm going to say this, a black mother would do. I say this because she's a black woman. She told him, keep his head up. And said they would be back and he'd go back and fight, but keep his head up because he did an excellent job. All of a sudden, now Adam Schefter, the number one NFL reporter, let's be real, sorry, Ian Rappaport, the number one NFL reporter said this is a nice exchange. And then all of a sudden, here come the traditionalists. Oh, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. That's not journalism. You ain't supposed to do that. Why would she do that? That's not awesome. She's making it about herself. She should have said that by herself. So what irritated me was the fact that y'all said this because y'all knew she was a black woman. And most of the time, people like to gatekeep. They want to keep black women especially in their place. So I didn't appreciate that. That like Jamel Hill had said some words about, maybe it wasn't the right place, right time. Talked about, you're always taught to not be biased. You're there to cover the story. You got to get the truth. As sports journalists, you don't go in being a fan. But she, I didn't watch the interview yet, or the conversation yet, I should say. But shout out to Dawn Montgomery. She posted it. And so I'm going to go back and look at that. But I did read that there was a, apology because both of them were a part of that. But I saw Matt Barnes go at people's neck telling people, they going through all this. And then I said, okay, I didn't think it was fair the way that people were coming at her. And she reminded people, and I want to give a shout out to the homie Ryan Ripken, because Ryan had her on his show, the Ryan Ripken Show. They do a great job over there covering baseball, football, definitely the Orioles and Ravens. Ryan Ripken, yes, the name Ripken, he is the son of Cal. He did an excellent job, and he's somebody who was a former player who got in the media, and he respects the craft. He did an excellent job. He talked to her, and she said, quite frankly, look, I'm a journalist. I've been doing this over 25 years. And she named Terry Bradshaw, Barack Obama, and Tiger Woods. 3 different people, 3 different jobs. Said she's interviewed them. So for the people out there, the traditionalists telling her what to do, well, does your resume stack? So now I got to talk about the people who are going at her neck, because all of a sudden, this influx of content creators, which annoy the fuck out of me as I sit here, all of a sudden go with their entitlement bug. And they start saying, see, this is why I didn't go to school for journalism. And you can take all your stuffy journalism, this, that, and the other. And I always say this, what other industry can you come into just with some influence, just with some people following you and be a part of it? You're not going to do that in IT because, quite frankly, I don't care how many people you know. If you don't know how to fix my computer, I don't want you fixing my computer. You're not going to go into the nursing field or the medical field. You're not going to go into engineering. You're surely not going in and start cooking for me. Yeah, you may got a couple homegrown, recipes. Now, I understand people think journalism is easy. And everybody thinks they can do it. But these things right here have taken away the core essence of journalism. That's telling a story and writing well. Because most of the people you see, the Stephen A. Smiths, the Jamel Hills, they started with the pen and the paper and the pad. And then TV changed. But there's been this shortcut that's allowed people to come in because they have a camera. And so you have to say, okay, you charge it to the game. Fine, it is what it is. But what I always have an issue is, and I've had this issue with people, even some of my friends, they come in an arrogant manner because they may get a couple clicks, a couple retweets, can't write themselves out of a paper bag, can't put together a complete sentence. And you can tell by a lot of times the way they talk. But because they have a following, all of a sudden, they get access. They get in the press rooms. They get in the arenas. And they get a little bit of taste. But if you ask them to put together a sentence, or if you ask them to edit a video on a computer using a high-level program, not CapCut where it does everything for you, they can't do it. So that's the thing that annoyed me about this, because you have people, I understand being upset at the old fogey journalists that irritated you because the way they went at Miss Lynn Jones. But don't disrespect the craft. And don't disrespect the people that got you here. It's unfortunately, again, the only field where the amount of followers can get you in the door. Because anytime you got to put your hands on something, you can't do it. And quite frankly, y'all can do that, but y'all can't even do, even people coming at the communications field, right? Now, to spit out my resume, I've done every position in this field. I've done audio production. I've done video production, obviously on-air stuff. I've done media relations and public relations. You write a statement when one of the players get out there and act a fool. Or you write a statement when a tragedy happens for an educational or medical facility. You write a statement. You build relationships and decide how to identify high-level media organizations or how to connect a journalist with an expert. That's the thing. A lot of people can't do that. Yeah, they can do the on-air, the fun part. The fun part is talking. That's the easy part. I can sit up here and do this show, all day. I may run out of breath. May have to take a break for water. But when it comes to post-production, pre-production, these people can't market. They can't edit. So when I see people coming at the business, that I love, it pisses me off. You know, you look at the wrestling realm every Wednesday night. The real Dwayne Allen and I went to school together, Morgan State University, studied TV production together. That's why I'm OCD with the way I sound, the way I look, my lighting. And when I do it, it's a certain style that I'm looking for. I'm not standing up here with, my phone, just talking. So that's what really annoyed me this week. People coming at the journalists, but then also coming the old school journalists who, quite frankly, what they forgot to realize is the business changed when y'all started letting columnists do TV shows where they are openly rooting for their team. The business changed when we stopped covering sports with the what's happening on the field, and we started inserting opinion and started these talk shows, because now people are going to know who's who likes who. There was a time where you didn't know. Y'all tell me who Stuart Scott's favorite team was outside of the University of North Carolina. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't remember hearing his favorite team. But when we got these debate shows, and I remember, shout out to Professor Kent. I remember him shaking his head. Professor Kent, one of the greatest journalists I knew, Milton Kent of the Baltimore Sun. I remember him shaking his head and said, that's not journalism. He said, because people wanted to come in his class and just talk and debate sports, but they didn't want to take the time to learn how to write and really cover a team. People don't know how to build relationships the way they used to. So that's my take on that. Hey, real quick, if you are a fan of Beyond the Gates, well, make sure you are subscribed, one, to the channel, but also check out the playlist where Queen PR and I do a deep dive every week, as well as recaps on the brand new hit show, Beyond the Gates. Check out Loving Them Gates. Let's talk about Steve Biscoitti. The Baltimore Ravens owner sat down with the media and he had a lot to say. I thought it was funny. He made it clear that John Harbaugh was going to be gone. They said, what if Tyler Luke makes that kid? He said, how long would John Harbaugh been here? A week. Well, one, that tells me that he had no faith in this team to make it past the first round of the playoffs. But it just goes to show you, it was time to move on. And I love the press conference because he even said, like, what Tucker made it. He said, probably. He did say he let them handle it. And he said he's not leaving this team to his family. He wants the Ravens to win a couple Super Bowls, that he's selling that bad boy. So I appreciated that. And I'm excited to see what happens. I do hope Lamar Jackson finds his way to the final stage interview with the next head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. But during that interview, and during his presser, I should say, and no, nobody gave him words of encouragement. They all asked questions. Not that Biscoitti needed it. He's a billionaire, for goodness sakes. But during that time, news broke. Mike Tomlin, Pittsburgh Steelers head coach, stepped down. Now, this was a move I saw happening. I knew Tomlin was going to be out. I said, Tomlin will be done. And hopefully the Ravens will get him. Now, Tomlin has made it clear. His team has told teams he is not coaching next year. So I do understand that. Biscoitti said, they asked him would he hire Tomlin. And of course, I think Biscoitti was a little tipsy personally. That's just my opinion. I thought he was feeling good. But he said, yeah, maybe. If John takes the Pittsburgh job, which I would love. But he also said that when Tomlin did that blow kiss away, might have disqualified him for the position. But he respects him. And somebody tweeted this, though. The AFC North has an opportunity to do something very funny. You got Kevin Stefanski, the Browns head coach, relieved of his duties. John Harbaugh, relieved of his duties. Mike Tomlin stepped down. Let's switch these guys around, right? So you send John Harbaugh to Cleveland because he was a Browns fan. He grew up a Browns fan. Send him there. Send Stefanski to Pittsburgh and bring Mike Tomlin here. How funny would that be, and how great would the rivalries be? I would love, quite frankly, to see Harbaugh and Tomlin switch places. I think that would be very cool. But nonetheless, I don't know, folks. I don't know if Mike Tomlin will ever coach again. I think Mike Tomlin would do TV very well. He's very opinionated. He doesn't hold back, but we also saw that one press conference. that one behind the scenes video, because Antonio Brown decided to go live. And when he went live, we heard him talk about the Patriots and call them a-holes. So I would like to see, if Mike Tomlin go to TV, I could see him saying, no, I'm done with coaching. But I do think it's unfair as a Ravens fan, right? Love the Ravens. Tomlin annoyed me because he was supposed to. He was their head coach. But I will say I had a lot of respect for him. And I think that when he was coaching, I've always felt that he didn't get a fair shot in the second part. The post-Big Ben era, they never recovered. He was never able to find that quarterback, unfortunately. And because they never found that quarterback, they tried to rinse and reuse. Hate to say it that way, but Russell Wilson got into the playoffs, out the first round, thanks to the Ravens. Aaron Rodgers got to the playoffs, out. He had Kenny Pickett for a little bit, Mason Rudolph, Justin Fields, but they couldn't get over the hump. So it sucks, but I'm glad that, I will say this, I am happy that him and John Harbaugh went out at the same time. If they had to both go, I'm glad they went out at the same time. That way, we don't have to sit back and think man, what if Harbaugh or what if Tom? Nah, let them both go at the same time. Let's call it a day. Thank y'all for your services. That way the era ends together, And I wouldn't be surprised to see a photo of them two hanging out in Cancun. I thought it was interesting that Steve Biscoitti said he told John Harbaugh, you can go on vacation for a year. It'll be on me. That's some bullshit. Man, Biscoitti, you want to send me on vacation for a year? I'll come back and coach. Let me coach the media. Let me coach the players on how to handle the media. I could do a good job. I got over 5 years experience at Johns Hopkins Medicine, as far as media coaching and preparation for doctors. Again, I've been on every side of this field. So people who coming at people, your Pat McAfee's and all of them, coming at people who went to journalism school, cut it out. I wish a lot of times we could hit the reset button, but we can't. That's just how it is. But ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for another episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with Uncomfortable Conversations. Be sure to check out the 6 Heart Media Loving Them Gates episodes, where Queen PR and I covered Beyond the Gates this past week. And we also did a special on Fairmont Crest bad boy, Joey Armstrong. So make sure y'all check that out. And make sure you follow me at Brian H. Wars on all social media platforms. I got my Twitter back. Hopefully I got 2-factor authentication on, so hopefully it won't be no issues. But remember, folks, do not let anyone place a ceiling above your success. So long, everyone. Thank you for joining this episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. For more uncomfortable conversations, for some interviews, exclusive interviews, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Check out the playlist. We got this channel perfectly organized for